My good people, what's going on? Thank you for joining us on another FC Piero DIY. Today we're going to be working on a 2011 Porsche Carrera 911S. Today on the 911 behind me, we're going to be covering how to replace the engine mounts. Typically, these are something that lasts anywhere between 60 to 80,000 miles, 7 to 8 years. The information's all over the place. Honestly, if you're feeling like your engine's rocking a boat, it's probably time to change them. Another way you can tell is by looking at your exhaust tips. Oftentimes, as the mounts start to go bad, the whole engine will start sagging a little bit. So if you have some uneven spaces between your tips and your bumper, just an easy way to check and see if your mounts are bad. Today we're using just some typical OE replacements. They come with hardware. Your bottom nut is reusable, so no need to replace that. Pretty straightforward, but before we get started, let's take a look at the tools we're going to need for this job. For this job, we have a couple tools in front of us that we're going to need, starting with a torque wrench. We have a 3/8 drive one today, a 3/8 drive ratchet. We have a 1-foot extension, a 10mm socket, a T55, a flathead screwdriver, and then some nice to haves are an electric ratchet just to speed up the removal and installation of hardware, and a flashlight. Now we have our tools covered, let's get started on this DIY. All right, my good people, we're going to start at the engine side first, up top. And just one thing I want to note before we begin, you do not have to remove your whole airbox in order to do these mounts. They're pretty accessible as it is. Usually just taking off the lid is sufficient enough. However, for the purpose of this DIY and visibility, we're going to go ahead and remove the whole box just to give you the best view possible. With that being said, let's get started by removing the clamp on our intake boot. Just using a flathead screwdriver for that. With that, we're going to go ahead and remove our mass airflow sensor connector. Again, you're going to have a clip on the bottom half that you obviously can't see from here. Squeeze it, you'll hear it. Give it a wiggle. Off it comes. Set it to the side. From there, we're going to work on freeing up our vacuum solenoid on the right-hand side of the airbox. To do so, you simply want to get your hand on the end of the clip here, lift up the gray tab, and push back at the same time. You'll see it release itself. Leave that there. From here, we're simply a matter of wrestling out the box. We're going to pull the boot off from the intake. Sorry, we're going to pull off the boot from the throttle body, I should say. And while we do that, we're also going to wrestle the box up. There's some rubber grommets that hold it into place. Notice how I'm rotating it with the intake boot side facing up. Just helps pull it out easier. With the airbox freed up like this, you do still have a vacuum line that's connected to your little solenoid. You can choose to disconnect it or just set it off to the side. We have a little table set up over here so we can rest the airbox on that. With that moved over, now we can go ahead and head underneath the vehicle and work on the left-hand mount first. You want to do one at a time so everything doesn't move around on you. So let's get underneath there and start with the bottom left. Before we loosen up any bolts under our engine, we're going to go ahead and support it. I'm using a floor jack and a piece of wood. And the idea is to snug it up against the bottom of the sump. Perfect. With that done, now we can go ahead and head underneath and break free our T55. I'm using a T55 on a long extension with a 3/8 ratchet. Back up top, we're going to go ahead and take our 13mm socket and break free our 2 bolts that hold our mount onto the car. These you want to replace every time you're changing your mounts out. The kit does include new hardware. And out it comes. On my new mount, you can see we have this square locating notch. This is going to tell me if it's going to key into this brace properly or not. So you want to compare your old mount to your new mount and just make sure that they both are facing the same direction. These look good. So I'm going to go ahead and drop my new mount in. And you can also feel it locking in with the brace there. So that's good. Take our new hardware. Started by hand first. Then we'll snug it up with the electric ratchet. Again, these are 13mm bolts. And we're going to torque these down to 23 Newton meters or 17 foot-pounds, whichever one you prefer. With this all situated, let's head back underneath and put our T55 bolt back in. I'm gonna go ahead and feed our T55 back up. And then, you know me, I'm gonna take my electric ratchet and just snug it up quickly. And now we're gonna go ahead and torque it to 63 foot-pounds. With that buttoned up, let's head over to the other side. Before we install our second mount, I just wanted to give you, my good people, a comparison on the old mount versus our new one. Just holding it up side by side, you can see how different the stud on the old mount looks compared to the one on the left. It's totally drooping, sagging. These things we're seeing the end of their days. Another thing, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, is a difference in how the exhaust hangs. So if you take a look next to me, you can compare the driver's side bank that we just did versus the passenger side bank that we still have to do. There's a huge difference there, at least 6 millimeters. So just an easy telltale sign if your mounts are going bad. Anyways, let's get back to it. Let's finish up this right side. All right, my good people, we're on the passenger side now, and I just wanted to point something out before we continued. I know these views can be a little bit difficult on camera. To give you an idea of where this T55 is located, when you're underneath the vehicle, it is in between your vacuum pump on the passenger side and the exhaust catalytic converter and pipe section. So it's a straight shot up, really easy to get to. Just wanted to paint the picture a little bit for those of you watching from home. So now, without further ado, let's do our other T55. Beautiful. Let's head back up top now. Now, again, our engine's supported, our T55 is off. We're gonna go ahead and remove the two 13 millimeters up top here to get our old mount out. I'm gonna take our new mount, make sure our square portion keys into the brace. Now in this case, I'm gonna have to lower the jack underneath a little bit. All right. Start our new hardware by hand and snug it up. And now we're going to go ahead and torque it to 17 foot-pounds or 23 Newton meters. Dealer's choice. Got a T55 on the end of our socket here, on the long extension. Just started by hand. And now we're going to torque it to 63 foot-pounds. I took the opportunity while our airbox was out to go ahead and do some housekeeping, just wiping down some grime and road dirt and some dust. It's also a good opportunity to clean your throttle body. Just give it a quick wipe if it looks a little grimy. With that being said, we're gonna go and put our airbox back in. Just to note, you have two rubber grommets on the body of the car. These are locating for the dowels at the bottom of the airbox. So when you put it back in, just try to make sure that those pop in there. So without any more talking, let's do it. With that, I'm gonna go ahead and tighten up the clamp so I can maintain my good seal. Next, we're gonna plug in our mass airflow sensor back in. Great. And last, we're gonna go ahead and reconnect our solenoid on the side of the airbox. And make sure that little gray tab slips on top. Beautiful. There we have it. And there you have it, my good people. Another DIY in the books. Overall, a straightforward job. Number one thing here is safety. Just be sure you're using the right equipment when working underneath the engine, especially when you're lowering it and raising it. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments on what we did today, leave those in the comment box below. And if you like this DIY and you want to see more like them, please consider subscribing. We make new ones all the time. As always, thank you for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.